A warm welcome to everyone joining us from all over the world. Well, not such a warm welcome today as the rain has come down quite quickly in the past couple of minutes here at Autodrom Most. We are ready for round 4 of the Formula 4 Central European Zone Championship. My name is Daniele Spadi and I will be your commentator this weekend to catch the action live of all of our 4 races. You can see the cars tumbling down the racetrack towards the start-finish line to form up the grid for race number 1. And as you can see, the track has been getting wetter and wetter as we go on with the closing minutes before the start of the first race of this weekend. As you can see, plenty of water being taken by the drivers, especially outside of the racing line. And of course, everyone is now tentatively going around the circuit here in Most, trying to figure out just how complicated the conditions are for race number 1. In qualifying, the track was dry, it wasn't raining this morning, and therefore this is the first real approach with wet weather running for our drivers this weekend. The weekend has started with plenty of emotions from qualifying, and as we get ready for this opening race, we will be seeing Max Karhan line up on pole position. He was finally able to be back on the top step in qualifying after doing so for race number 2 at the Red Bull Ring earlier this year. First round of the championship. As you can see, the conditions are not ideal for this opening race. This, of course, will not stop our 39 drivers to race today. Gentle reminder, if this is your first time joining us this season, we have so many cars out on track that the entire field is split into 3 different groups, racing twice each in the first 3 races of the weekend, and then the best drivers, taking into account the final results of each single race, will then qualifying for the very final race of the weekend, race number 4. This is ever so important for those drivers who are wanting to get a head start this weekend, and unfortunately that will not be the case for car number 42. Noah Daniel Nurken is in the gravel already on the reconnaissance lap, and that is very unfortunate for him, but not something unusual, especially if you think about the very difficult conditions that we have had this weekend. The German for Jenzer Motorsport is unfortunately still in the gravel trap. He's still in the car, however, so maybe he will be able to be recovered from the stewards and then be allowed from race control to start this opening race of the weekend. As you can see, however, the track is still very wet. You can see it here with the 2 Jenzer Motorsport drivers just trying to understand where the grip is and where it falls away underneath their wet tires, putting to the test the new tire compound for the first time this weekend. So this is a very eventful way to start the second half of the season. This is round 4. A little bit of a recap if you haven't been with us for the first 3 weekends of the season. We were at the Red Bull Ring in April for the opening race weekend of 2026 for Formula 4 Central European Zone, where we had David Walther come out victorious in 2 of the 4 races. The Danish driver already establishing his dominance on the championship as Mafia Racing left the opening round of the season in the lead of the driver standings with David Walther. Then it was Elia Weiss who came back at the Salzburg Ring in May with 2 victories and the championship lead before we went to the 3rd round at the Slovakia Ring in June. We had plenty of fun in Orechova Poton, where we had Theo Borenstein come back into the championship pictures with 2 victories. Simon Rechenmacher finally taking his maiden win of the season, and David Walther coming back to the top step of the podium in the grand final in that race, in that weekend. and as a result, Walther comes into this fourth round of the season as the championship leader, 167 points for the Mafia Racing driver, who has never been off the podium this year. He has raced in 8 races, all of them finished on the podium. Should have been 9, of course, but the final race at the Salzburg Ring was cancelled due to heavy rain and strong winds. Thankfully, we're not at that level here in Most, and therefore we are getting ready to see the first race of this weekend, where David Walther will line up in 3rd position. He wasn't the quickest in qualifying, though of course his effort's still good enough to put him on the 2nd row of the grid alongside Markas Cilkunas, with the Lithuanian driver getting ready to challenge for yet another podium finish this season. On the front row, however, it will be Max Karhan and Theo Borenstein, the 2 drivers that have been representing the Czech Republic in the best way possible this season, currently in 4th and 3rd respectively in the championship, though the 2 of them are still in within reaching distance of David Walther, the championship leader. Otherwise, the other big name in the championship fight, Elia Weiss, is not on the starting grid for this race, as he is and has been classified into Group C, and therefore will race later this afternoon. But this is a great opportunity to see the starting grid. Max Karhan and Theo Borenstein on the front row, just ahead of David Walther and Markas Cilkunas. In 5th, it's Alexander Bogunovic ahead of Francesco Pio Coppola. Matilda Paz, and we wish her happy birthday today, as she lines up in 7th, just alongside Antonio Enrico. Leo Nielsen and David Gorczyca round out the top 10. You can see also positions from 11 to 20 with Andreas Lobue, Dean Pedersen, and the rest of the field with Simon Antonio Bulbarelle and Stefan Tranensky on the 7th row. Then it's Felipe Reis, Mio Ollert, Erik Poulsen, Miroslav Kepak, then Tomasz Rudokas and Tobias Paschko in the top 20. And then it's Mikalina Sabay, Noah Daniel Nolken, Nikolai Dirved, František Nemec, Roman Rubicek and Bennett Gaspar rounding out the grid. 26 drivers getting ready for the opening race of this weekend. And as you can see here, we have plenty of people still on the starting grid. Here in row number 6 with Andreas Lobue, the Renauer Motorsport driver, with the black and yellow car on the right hand side of the screen. Alongside him was Dean Pedersen in the number 9 car. Both of them have been fighting for podiums this season. Pedersen finally clinching his maiden top 3 finish at the Slovakia Ring in the 3rd race of that weekend. On the other side, Andreas Lobue has a best finish of 5th place in the very first race that he has raced in this year at the Red Bull Ring. With Andreas Lobue, of course, defending the colors of Switzerland and Renauer Motorsport. Another Swiss driver, Georgi Zazov, has been mighty competitive this year as well. Currently 7th in the standings, whereas Lobue is down in 15th as of right now. But as you can see, the grid is getting ready to witness this first race of a weekend that has definitely taken an interesting turn, especially because of the weather. Naturally, we are seeing wet tires being fitted on the cars, and as you can see, plenty of fans, as always, coming at the Racing Journal Speedfest here in Most, one of the biggest events on the Czech Republic and on the calendar for this very interesting circuit, a track that hosts, of course, plenty of interesting series such as the FIA European Truck Racing Championship and the World Superbike. This weekend, of course, we have Formula 4 CEZ, which has been a stable presence on Most's calendar since its opening season in 2023. Let's not forget that this is a circuit that runs deep into the hearts of touring car fans as well, with the WTCR race of the Czech Republic being held here back in 2021. And of course, we will be watching the TCR Eastern Europe guys go at it this weekend as well. But as you can see here, the safety car panel is out, meaning that most likely we will be starting under safety car conditions, which is nothing but fair given how treacherous the conditions looked like in the reconnaissance laps. We also saw one of the cars slipping out of the track and into the gravel trap, and that was Noah Nurken, who was supposed to start from 22nd position. You can see a little gap at the end, the tail end of the starting grid, with Max Karhan and Theo Borenstein getting ready to start behind the safety car and, most importantly, begin the opening race in the top 2 spots. The 2 home heroes looking to clinch victory on their home circuit, and this will of course be a huge chance for both Karhan and Borenstein to gain some valuable points on David Walther. Points are awarded to the top 15, but with Karhan starting on pole position and Walther being in 3rd place, this would bring 9 more points to Karhan compared to his rival. He is currently 39 points back in the championship, though of course there's still plenty to fight for, with each driver having to race 9 more times from here until the end of the season. As you can see from the timer on the starting grid, we are less than 3 minutes away from the start, not just of the formation lap, but of the race as well. Of course, being under safety car conditions, we will be beginning straight away as all the 26 cars are getting ready to begin this very damp weekend. Wet weather racing is of course very complicated, especially in Formula 4 cars, given how difficult it is for the drivers to put down the power and especially work with so little aerodynamic grip compared to other more powerful cars. But this is just a further test of these drivers' abilities. As you can see, the safety car panel out, meaning that we will be starting behind the safety vehicle, which is of course to be expected in these conditions. But as we get ready to start, we're about to find out who will be the bravest in these conditions as well. So Max Karhan starts on pole position. You can see his Jenzer Motorsport car on the right hand side of the screen behind this lovely Hyundai safety car, and alongside him the other Czech driver in Theo Borenstein. The 2 Jenzer Motorsport teammates getting ready to bring the action to the circuit. It will be very interesting to see how difficult it will be out there for the drivers. It looks like the rain has slightly stopped now, and even if it hasn't stopped, the intensity has gone down quite a bit compared to the 30 or so minutes before the start of this opening race. It was really raining quite hard just half an hour ago, whereas right now it looks like the rain might have stopped, but of course the track is still very much wet, and therefore it will be not easy for our drivers to challenge for the win, and of course for the 14 remaining points paying positions as we move closer to the start of the formation. We're just 20 seconds away now from the start of the race, behind the safety car, as Max Karhan will be the first to get a taste of what the conditions are currently. Naturally, in wet weather racing, it is fundamental to be at the front of the field, not just of course to be in the lead of the race, but most importantly to be clear of any spray. And here are the cars starting to move out of their grid slots, and as you can see, the track is definitely not as wet as it looked to be 15 minutes or so when we started this broadcast. Still, of course, conditions are quite hard, and in most, this opening chicane is quite tricky, especially given how difficult it is to get a grip of the track conditions. As you can see, drivers experimenting with different lines though being extremely tight to the inside into turn 1, just to have a better entry into turn 2, and then use the exit towards the end of the first sector, where we start having a bit more complex corners in between turns 6 and 10, where we are right about now. As you can see, the track is still quite wet around here as well, with a couple of patches and puddles waiting for the drivers. As you can see, Borenstein looking to the outside into turn 10, just figuring out where the grip is, where the track might be a bit drier, or where the wet tire could function a bit better. And that is, of course, one of the many qualities drivers need to have in order to excel in these conditions. It's not easy, definitely, for them to approach this weekend, especially with wet weather racing in front of their eyes, and it is supposed to keep raining, or at least not see the sun for the remainder of the day, whereas tomorrow it should be all clear. But of course, weather can change just as fast. So as the rain has stopped a couple of minutes ago, it may pick back up in the following minutes, as we now look at the drivers getting a bit of a second look at the circuit after the reconnaissance laps. As you can see here, sector 3 is by far the wettest part of the circuit, and this is not easy for our drivers, as they need to learn how to push and where the racing line is. Naturally, with wet weather racing, the racing line isn't always on the curbs themselves and isn't as direct as it might be in dry running. Wet conditions might require the drivers to get a bit wider in the turns, carrying a bit more speed and not struggling as much with traction. As you can see now, Max Karhan trying that exact technique. Meanwhile, we have a car in the pit, and that should be Nölker. Yes, it is the German who had found himself in the gravel on his way to the grid. Meanwhile, our drivers still navigating these first few minutes of the race. The clock is ticking, let's not forget. This is part of the race, though of course behind the safety car no one can line up a move or overtake, though of course drivers are still capable of understanding what is happening and what isn't. Just as a reminder, we are into the race and there's already just 21 minutes left to play for in this opening race of the weekend. Groups A and B fighting against one another. We will then be back on track for race number 2 later today at around 2:55 p.m. Sorry, around 4:35 p.m. for what is race number 2, with groups B and C fighting against one another. So group C having its maiden race later today for what is likely to be another wet race, or at least with a damp track should the rain not return. And then on Sunday at 3 p.m. local time, we will watch the grand final, race number 4, not before of course race number 3, where groups A and C will fight out on track at 9 a.m. sharp to figure out who will qualify for the grand final. But the safety car is back in the pits, and therefore we're ready to go back to green flag racing for the very first time here in Most. It's race number 1 officially underway under green flag conditions, as Max Karhan races towards turn number 1. Theo Borenstein and David Walther behind him. Let's see who spots their braking points better towards turn number 1. It's a very late braking zone for Theo Borenstein, who goes slightly wide as well, as on the other hand Karhan was a bit more conservative on the braking, Meanwhile, there's a couple of fights on track, and that is Dean Pedersen round the outside of car number 32, Simon Antonio Bulbarelle, with the Argentine trying a move down the outside of turn number 1, the opening chicane of the racetrack, but it looked like Pedersen had the upper hand, with the American keeping 12th position. All smooth sailing for the rest of the field so far. The only one in the pits is Noah Nurken, who unfortunately seems to be out of the race. But as you can see now, all the cars threading their way gently into this first lap under green flag conditions, even though we're already into lap number 3 after 2 laps behind the safety car, as Max Karhan still leads ahead of Theo Borenstein. As you can see, the two Jenzer drivers trying to build a bit of a gap over David Walther in 3rd position, though the Mafia Racing driver, the championship leader, knows best than to make any sudden moves or mistakes. He just knows that he has to be very concentrated, because just a single mishap could turn into disaster and into a huge opportunity for the two Jenzer Motorsport drivers. As you can see, every car looking for its own line, trying to understand whether or not the outside line might be quicker or if the inside line is still the best one. Max Karhan now across the start finish line with a 1.1 second gap over Theo Borenstein, two Czech drivers in the lead. Meanwhile, here is Andreas Lobue looking for a move over David Gorczyca. Can the Swiss driver move into 10th? The answer is a swift and abrupt no, as on the other side Pedersen has to defend once more, and does so successfully on Bulbarelle, as the DriveX driver is still in 13th, but still in the point-paying position, together with Stefan Treneski and Mio Ohlert. The two rounding out the top 15 as we speak. Meanwhile, David Walther is 2.4 seconds behind race leader Max Karhan. Behind him is Markas Šilkonas with the Jenzer Motorsport entry in 4th position, making it 3 cars for Jenzer inside the top 4. Behind him, SG Motors with Ebaye Racing with Alexander Bogunovic in 5th, as the Slovenian is just ahead of Francesco Pio Coppola. Meanwhile, we see the drivers starting to build a bit of a gap over one another, as of course it is very difficult to race in these conditions. You can see drivers looking for alternative lines, trying to build a bit of confidence as well, which is not easy, especially with the race being this short. Only 16 minutes left on the clock already, given that almost a third of the race was basically lost behind the safety car. Here is David Gorczyca in the Yannick Motorsport red and white entry, car number 88, currently in 10th position, as you can see from the graphics as well. As now Gorczyca looks to line up a move on Antonio Rigo, who has been overtaken by Leo Nielsen last time around. As now Gorczyca gets closer and closer into turn 1. Rigo braking quite late, maybe a bit too much to the inside into turn number 2. Can this leave Rigo vulnerable to Gorczyca's attacks, with the Czech driver looking for a way through in his home race? But Gorczyca stays in 10th position. Behind him is Andreas Lobue in 11th, with Dean Pedersen in 12th, Simon Antonio Bulbarelle in 13th, Mio Ohlert in 14th, and then Stefan Treneski in 15th position. Meanwhile, up top, it's still Max Karhan and Theo Borenstein, the two local heroes, in 1st and 2nd for what would be a sensational 1-2 for the Czech Republic's colours. Meanwhile, though, Lobue was looking to maybe line up a move on David Gorczyca, at least trying something different with the lines, looking around, just seeing where the grip was. But it's very, very difficult to understand whether or not the lines that the drivers are finding are worth it. And that is something that Lobue is now thinking as he is under attack from Dean Pedersen. And as you can see now, they're working quite hard into the penultimate corner as Pedersen looks to go around the outside, and that's a move done from the American, once again proving that the outside line sometimes is the quickest way around a circuit that is this wet. We also saw Lobue losing the rear of his Renauer Motorsport car. But Pedersen is now moved up into 11th, with Lobue down in 12th. And now Simon Antonio Bulbarelle, the Argentine, as you can see him now for DriveX, fighting for 12th position with Lobue, though the Swiss driver looks to be still in 12th. Meanwhile, we saw a couple of cars cutting the opening chicane, and Bulbarelle is looking to the inside into turn 6. As now both drivers look to go into the gravel, and that is not what either of them wanted, as finally Bulbarelle rejoins the circuit. But unfortunately for him, he has lost plenty of positions, and that fight came down into tears as the two of them pretty much slid off the circuit. There was no contact between Bulbarelle and Lobue, as the two basically just missed their braking point, almost aquaplaning away from the racing line. That was very, very disappointing for the two of them, as now Bulbarelle is still trying to get up to speed once more, and behind him Stefan Tranensky fighting with Felipe Reis, as the latter for Karhan Motorsport looks to make a move on the JMT Motorsport driver. Let's see the two of them go side by side towards the penultimate corner. There is Erik Poulsen as well, looking to get into the fight. A little bit of a switchback on Stefan Tranensky, though the latter seems to maintain the position, as the two almost go side by side towards the start finish straight. As the two now race towards turn number 1. Who will be the bravest on the braking? Is it going to be Erik Poulsen up the inside? No, it's going to be Tranensky around the outside, though he has missed his braking point, as the North Macedonian driver has now been forced to cut the first chicane, losing the position almost surely, and there he goes, being overtaken by Erik Poulsen, as the Swedish driver now pulls ahead and into 15th place, the final points paying position. As meanwhile we see Tobias Paschko on the attack. Here he is, the Yannick Motorsport driver, as he moves closer to the top 15, but still outside of the points paying position. As now you can see once again the fight brewing up, as Renauer Motorsport looks to make a move. And meanwhile there's a car off, and that is, I think, one of the JMT Motorsport cars, but we'll have to see after perhaps a replay. No, that may have been Simon Antonio Bulbarelle, actually, the DriveX entry of car number 32. He was into 14th, and maybe has lost a couple of positions. Here is the Yannick Motorsport of Tobias Paschko, still on the outside of the top 15, just behind Tomasz Rudokas, as the latter looks to grow closer and closer to the points paying position. He's in 16th, just behind Tranensky, as the three of them almost go 3 wide and side by side into the opening corner. And I think, yes, one of them has missed their braking point, and it's Tranensky again, who is forced to cut the opening chicane. Will we see an overtake now Or we will see one, but it's not involving Trenski. It's Tobias Paschko up the inside of Rudokash. But Rudokash goes right around the outside of both himself and Trenski, moving into 15th. That was a very bold move from Rudokash around the outside and into a points paying position, with now Trenski fighting hard against Paschko, and behind them it's Andreas Lobue after his off not too long ago. Meanwhile, up top, we haven't seen much of Max Karhan, but he's still in the lead. A 2.2 second gap over Theodor Borenstein and a 4 second lead over championship leader David Walther in third position. Markas Shilkunas is in fourth, with Alexander Bogunovic in fifth. Actually, top 7 has not changed since the start of the race, with Francesco Piocoppola and Matilda Paz 6th and 7th respectively. As drivers seem to grow more comfortable into their cars, though with just a little over 8 minutes left on the clock, it will be difficult for them to make an impact, if not right now. As you saw Bulbarelli lose the rear end of his car once again. The Argentine not having a good race so far in wet conditions, though now he moves to the attack on Michelina Sabai as the AS Motorsport driver is under attack, and the same can be said for Andreas Lobue, who is now being attacked by car number 33, Tobias Paschko. Paschko looking to stay in front, and he does, therefore keeping 17th position. I mean, you can see the spray being kicked up by the cars has gone quite a bit down compared to what we had at the start of the race, which is definitely a nice bit of news for our drivers, who seems to find the track quicker and quicker as the lap times are tumbling down as well. A 1:51.5 for Theo Borenstein in the last lap. On the other hand, Max Karhan did a 51.7, just 0.2 slower than his rival. And there he is, the race leader, Max Karhan, starting lap number 10. He's lost another 10th compared to Borenstein, who is now 1.8 seconds back, but still quite far away, as we have one of the cars going wide, and it's Antonio Rigo, who was in 7th position, sorry 8th, but now will be tumbling down the order probably. Yes, he's already outside of the top 10 and dropping. He's currently in 12th now. So outside of the top 10, promoting Dean Pedersen inside it, with David Gorshica now in 9th as well. And that is bad news for the Italian from Technorace competition. He has been quite quick this season, always improving weekend after weekend. It was a strong showing at the Slovakia ring a couple of months ago. He claimed 3 top 8 finishes. Meanwhile, Bennett Gaspar looks to the inside of Michelina Sabai for 20th position as he makes the move stick. Yes, he has, which is tremendous work from the Hungarian, who of course is struggling in these conditions, but he is working very hard to keep the car on track, just like the other drivers as of right now. Meanwhile, Karhan and Borenstein still separated by, well, now less than 1.8 seconds, as we can see that Borenstein has closed the gap massively compared to the last lap. Maybe a bit of a mistake for Max Karhan. Yeah, definitely it was that, because it's a 1:53.1 for him, losing almost an entire second on the final sector. So race on with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left on the clock. as Borenstein is now less than a second away from the race lead. Third is David Walther, though he is still 2.5 seconds away. You can see his white Mafia car in third, as Markas Silkunas watches from afar in fourth position. This will be very interesting to see whether or not the two Jenzer drivers will be given the green light from their team to fight for first position, or if Karhan will be able to bring the car to the flag without having to worry about his rival. Of course, both of them are fighting for the championship. Karhan is 39 points back on David Walther. Borenstein is a bit further up the standings. He's in third, 22 points adrift. Though the two Czech drivers are still gaining on David Walther today. It's 25 points for a race win, 20 points for second, and 16 for third. A new points format that sees the top 15 score points in addition to this year's championship, given of course how dense the starting grid has been so far. As we now start yet another lap, and Karhan looks to have a bit more confidence now in him after what looked like a messy penultimate lap. He is back where he belongs, and on the final sector he was back being quicker than his rival. Of course, Borenstein is very much difficult. It's very much difficult for him actually to understand where he can actually attack or where he cannot maybe be as quick as Karhan is. So as of right now, Karhan still keeps the lead, and David Walther looks to be very calculated behind the two leaders. Meanwhile, we have a spin, and that's once again Mölker, the German driver, having a torrid time out there for race number one, which is of course a big shame. That is very, very unfortunate for the German driver. He will have the chance to redeem himself though in between races 2 and 3. Meanwhile, we are seeing some drops of rain starting to fall once again from the cameras, and I can see from the main grandstand as well, people starting to open up their umbrellas once more, as we now have a little over a minute left. Will we see a last minute attack from Borenstein, who looks very close? It's almost as if he is more comfortable than his rival when the rain comes down, and in these final few minutes Borenstein has come alive and on the attack on Max Karhan. He brakes much later than his rival, going slightly wide into the opening corner, but he is still within striking distance. As the clock has started its last lap around the 60 seconds. Therefore, we're getting ready to witness the end of this race, as we are onto the final lap of this opening race, and Max Karhan has dealt with these conditions beautifully from start to finish. Here he is as he gets ready to start the final sector of this race. Borenstein put him under pressure, but so far so good for Karhan, and he desperately needs this victory to reignite his championship campaign. A first win of the season for him back at the Salzburg ring in race number 3. He was always on the podium until race 2 of the Slovakia ring, where he finished 5th, and then tragedy on the final race at Orechova Poton as he finished outside of the points, thus losing precious ground in the championship. But as we go towards the final two corners, will it be Max Karhan or will it be Theo Borenstein crossing the line in first as the two round out the final corner? And without any mistakes, it should be Max Karhan taking the checkered flag first as they now move towards the end of the race. Fingers up to the sky, and it is Max Karhan who wins race number 1 of the Formula 4 Central European Zone, 4th round of the 2026 season here in Most. Victory on home soil for Max Karhan, just ahead of his compatriot Theo Borenstein, as the Czech fans would be delighted with that outcome, as now the rain is really coming down strong for the final few minutes and seconds of this race. Championship leader David Walther comes home in 3rd, and that is a much deserved podium for him, still keeping his streak strong of podium finishes. It's 9 podiums in a row for the Mafia Racing driver, still in the lead. And meanwhile we have a spinner, and that is Franciszek Nemec on the very final lap. And you can see how hard it is raining right about now for the drivers. Car number 17 fully in the gravel. Fortunately not the way he wanted to end the race, but yeah, the rain picking up quite strongly as of right now, spitting down massively, as you can catch from the cameras. Nemec trying to get out of the gravel trap, but then surrendering to the inevitable as car number 17 has finished its race prematurely. That was a very unfortunate for him, but nothing of the sort for Max Karhan. He was able to keep first place and keep the lead from Theodor Borenstein's attacks. Right at the end, it looked like Borenstein had the upper hand. Maybe a couple more laps, maybe laps of judgment for Karhan under the heavy rain, but that did not happen, as Karhan, Borenstein and Walther finished in the top 3. As you can see, the cars now moving towards the pit lane. A good job from Marka Shirkunas as well. He's in 4th place, just ahead of Alexander Bogunovic. Francesco Pio Coppola is Italy's best driver today, in 6th position, ahead of Matilda Paz, who will celebrate her birthday with 7th place. Leo Nilsson in 8th, David Gorczyca in 9th, and Dean Pedersen in 10th. And then we have the final points paying positions brought home by Mio Ohlert, Erik Poulsen, Antonio Rigo, Felipe Reis, and Tomasz Rudokas. Just outside of the top 15 is Andreas Lobue. That is a shame for the Renault Motorsport driver, who has worked tirelessly today to bring home some points, but unfortunately that wasn't the case for him. As you can see now, the drivers moving towards Parc Fermé, and of course for the top 3 to celebrate on the podium. It will be a short celebration, however, before race number 2 starts at 4:35 p.m. local time. Meanwhile, here are the results. Max Karhan wins the opening race of this weekend ahead of Theo Borenstein and David Walther, with Marka Shirkunas and Alexander Bogunovic in 4th and 5th, Francesco Pio Coppola in 6th, Matilda Paz in 7th, and then Leo Nilsson, David Gorczyca, and Dean Pedersen rounding out the top 10. Then the final points paying positions for Mio Ohlert, Erik Poulsen, Antonio Rigo, Felipe Reis, and Tomasz Rudokas. But that was a very entertaining first race, with the weather playing a huge part into the final results. The next race for Formula 4 Central European Zone will take place at 4:35 p.m. local time later today for race number 2, when groups B and C will fight against each other. And then, of course, Sunday we'll have races 3 and 4.